Okay. Doing some interior design. Okay, so I'm Beth McCarthy, Program Director at Web3Privacy, and I'm really excited to host some people I really admire, brilliant legal minds thinking about regulatory and compliance in, yeah, a really inspiring way. So I will have everybody introduce yourself starting at the end, and then we'll go into a discussion that will end up in a call to action and how we can get involved with fighting against weaponizing, surveillance, mercenary, spyware, and all of the ways the government is trying to crack down on yeah, some threats to privacy. So.
Yeah. Hello, everyone. My name is Ayonfe Olajide, and I'm a Web3 lawyer. I'm a lawyer who I work with a lot of Web3 projects and companies, basically in Africa, and basically helping them to scale their projects on the right side of the law. I'm into regulatory compliance, policy, and legal advisory. And it's a pleasure to be on this panel with other amazing legal experts.
Hi, everyone. Hello, hello. Yeah, okay. Thanks for being here. Thanks for having me on the panel. My name is Fateme Fanizadeh. I'm a crypto lawyer working in privacy for the past couple of years. I'm also part of the Silviculture Society. I'm qualified in Switzerland, and yeah, excited to be part of this conversation.
Hi everyone, my name is Marina, and I work in the EU and policy in the EU, including work on privacy. We work within the European Crypto Initiative, which is an association that is working on all things related to blockchain and crypto in the European Union. And part of it is privacy as well. And we'll talk later more about what that means and what's happening at the moment in the EU.
Hello, my name is Joan Arús, and I am the co-founder of Sentinel Alliance, which is a non-profit association of mercenary spyware victims, founded mostly by developers and technologists, with the objective to basically actively defend victims through strategic litigation, raise awareness across key stakeholders, and try to achieve effective change through regulation. And I guess I will be starting the conversation with a little bit a personal story, and then we will connect with the topic. Before founding Sentinel Alliance, I was executive director at Aragon Project. Before that, I co-founded Bogdani, which both of them were speaking before. Basically, I spent my career in technology building censorship-resistant and anonymous protocols for governance and identity. In 2019, and for 2 years, because of that work, we were targeted at Bogdani with mercenary spyware Pegasus and Candido, which I don't know if, raise your hand if you know what mercenary spyware is. Wow, okay. So just for those who did not raise their hands, mercenary spyware is basically a capability. It's more than a piece of software. It's the capability of turning your phone into a spy in your pocket. It can basically read encrypted messages, read your messages before they are transmitted and encrypted. It can retrieve files, photos, contacts, absolutely everything. It has root access on your device. You don't need to click on any link to get infected. They can target you with your phone number or your iCloud account. And it is multi-platform, meaning that it's not restricted to phone. It can also get you on iOS, macOS, Windows terminals. And what I wanted to this is highly unknown in the industry. Not everyone knows. Among the targets was Jordi Bailina, who was an advisor. Not only they targeted our team of developers, they targeted our investors or advisors, Jordi Bailina being one of them. He alone received 32 attacks, which costed millions to the attackers. And we were simply building open source code. We were not trafficking weapons. We were not planning an attack on a marketplace or bomb a train. They considered that to be a national security threat because of the potential use of the protocols we were building. I repeat, for the potential future use. I hope you see how this new playbook increases exponentially the risk surface and the vectors of attacks against open source developers. We've moved from a framework of requiring to arrest a developer to retrieve the messages. For example, in Tornado Cash, that was the case. They had to gain physical access. We have moved from that from any government in the world being able to target your device. And that's really, really worrying. And the other obvious challenge is from prosecuting past usage, which you can get into the details whether money laundering or AML rules, whether they breach or not, but it's past actions. And this is a new playbook, prosecuting future actions.
How do you know who targeted you and why they targeted you?
So I'll start with the why. We were targeted because the Spanish authorities were very scared that Catalan politicians could use the censorship-resistant voting protocol that we were building. And that was enough to basically prosecute us under the terrorism offense, which is, by the way, a key enabler here. In terms of regulation, if you check, in most countries, including Europe, terrorism includes any action with the objective to subvert the constitutional order or seriously destabilize the economic or social structures. Okay, who here is building tools that could fit that definition? I see some hands. You get my point? This is highly, highly worrying, and the weaponization of this serious offense is being used increasingly against developers.
Okay, all right. So, as a legal professional in the space, I think that what I'll be able to contribute to that is the fact that the regulators are concerned with very few things, right? And the fact that the concept or the definition of terrorism is so broad that innocent open source developers and protocols could be found liable under the definition of terrorism. And so I think that it's a call to action or something that we need to look at in the space, especially for those of us in policy making or who are trying to develop the policy legal landscape. And it is simply that perhaps it's high time that we come to redefine certain concepts, right? To be able to either we expand or we subtract from what we've always known to be what. So now in this context, what we've always known to be terrorism, I think that a way that developers could be protected is if we advocate for the expansion or otherwise of certain terminologies. And in this context, it would mean terrorism, right? Yeah.
So you mean expanding the definition of terrorism, or like refining it so
yes.
that it doesn't? Okay. Well, I mean, it's such a bad word, terrorism. It's used and abused, and like I'm even afraid of mentioning it on stage somehow. Like I'm on the right side, whatever that is, but. I think it's really a battle that is very difficult. Like, who gets to tell how, like the United States, how to define terrorism, like Spain, how to define, like who gets to lobby there. Like, it's usually designed in the legal system in a way where it kind of encompasses everything, and it's really difficult to fall outside of it. So if nothing else works, you can always fall back to terrorism or sanctions in the case of Tornado Cash, which then like was proved to be illegitimate sanctions because you cannot sanction a software, but still like these are the ultimate tools that they will use, and that whether or not it's legitimate, it doesn't matter because they're gonna still sanction it and people will suffer as a result, whether it's the developers directly or the users. And then like a few years later, you realize that they weren't even allowed to do this. So I don't think that, I'm a lawyer, like maybe I shouldn't say this, but I don't think that going past the bureaucratic route is necessarily kind of like the first response we must have, because it takes a long time to build the culture.
I agree. Yeah, I agree.
And I think that the technologies that privacy enables and censorship-resistant protocols, if you think about it, they represent a direct challenge to the monopolies that nation states have had for over 300 years or more. You think about identity, self-sovereign identity, voting, finances. If you look at that definition of terrorism, it will be used. That playbook will be used again and again unless we achieve some sort of protection or increased protection for those who are building those tools. For everyone here who is building decentralized technologies and privacy-centric technologies, the same way we consider lawyers are needed for maintaining your right to have a proper defense in court, or the same way we've got journalists protected with freedom of speech protection, we need, in my opinion, we need increased protections for the work of open source developers, because we increasingly live in a digital society, and they are building the primitives that will allow society to upgrade to digital governance, digital finances, etc. And I don't know, what is your opinion on the chances of achieving that increased protection towards open source developers? Do you think it's actually feasible? What's the way to get there?
I mean, this is what we discussed before in preparation to this panel. There's so many things that, in a way, we work on, at least from a policy perspective, that is kind of reactionary to what's happening, and the new laws being proposed and the changes being proposed that could affect one part of, let's say, what we understand as privacy, that doing something that is like, again, proactive, like changing a law that it was not even meant to be changed because you see that is affecting you in some way that you think should not. It's even, putting even more work into that and trying to activate us more. So it's really like, I would say this panel, it's kind of a call for activation from this industry. I know that like most of you are builders, but I think that a part of the industry is also thinking about how to help builders in a way build in a more secure way, but at the same time, at least, preventing some future regulations from happening that could be limiting privacy in many different ways. It can be financial privacy, it can be like just digital privacy in terms of like communication, it can be also when it comes to building.
Yeah, and to add to this discussion, when we talk about how developers, I'm sure many developers here are interested in about how they can be, legally protected, right? How do I do what I want to do without looking behind me, every 2 minutes, so that how do I? Yeah, okay. So I mean, we're curious to know how we can operate, freely and fairly without having to look behind us to see if the regulators, are coming to clamp down on us. And about that, I think that it will be interesting for us to look at the layer 2 protocols. And first of all, I think we have to actually define what kind of privacy we're offering as developers and to what extent, right? For me, I kind of understand privacy at 4 levels. There is pseudonymity, there is confidentiality, then there is anonymity, and then there's full stack privacy, right? Privacy in the sense that, nobody can see what I'm doing, where I'm doing it, who I'm sending the message to, how much I sent, when I sent it, how I sent it, right? If you first of all determine what kind of privacy you're offering, I mean, in context what degree of privacy you're offering. And I think that that would be simply that you are, it's not full dark mode privacy, but something that you can, privacy that you offer such that you can disclose certain information, but no more than is required, right? So how do I, when I'm building my privacy stack, how do I maintain disclosure, or how do I create disclosure and at the same time give out information that I need to give to the regulators, yet no more than is required, right? We see how that in the blockchain space is in direct conflict, for example, with the provisions of the GDPR. If we're looking at data privacy, the blockchain is naturally, by default, the blockchain is transparent. And one of the things that the regulators will require of you as a developer is that they require you to be in full compliance with Article 17 of the GDPR that states that you and I have a fundamental human right for our data to, one, not be disclosed, but more importantly, for our data to be erased and to be forgotten at will. However, the cryptographic measure through which you're building your project is the blockchain, and the blockchain is inherently transparent. So how do we merge the two, right? I think from my perspective, and especially from the perspective of the law, I understand that there are ZK, zero knowledge proofs, where zero knowledge proofs require you, make it possible for you to be able to prove that a transaction is true without revealing the details of the transaction, right? However, in practice, we see that although that is possible, but at the end of the day, the transaction that you have proven to be true can still be tied to a personally identifiable information. It could still be tied to, at the end of the day, a wallet address, or your sequentials, have the trails are there, right? So there's that to look at, right? And at some point, I think that in the legal and regulatory space, we would be looking at whether or not zero knowledge proofs provide for true anonymity. Do they truly provide anonymity like we claim they do, or do they just provide some form of advanced pseudonymization? Because what the regulators want from you is that, apart from the fact that they want data to be erased whenever and whenever it calls for it, they also want data to be as anonymized as possible. They want data to be as anonymized as possible. And the current level where ZKs operate do not provide for full anonymity because, again, while you can prove that a transaction is true without necessarily revealing the content, the trails can still be traced, to a transaction hash. So some developers are trying to toy with the idea of creating like a two-layered step where the commitment, the content of the transaction is private. You can't see it. However, the proof of that transaction, which is the transaction hash in this case, it is recorded and uploaded on a public ledger, right? And so the regulators will still ask, since I can see proof that the transaction is on-chain, have you truly anonymized the data? Because anonymity is the fact that there's an actor, but I can't identify the actor. And pseudonymity is there is an actor, but the actor is operating under a consistent but artificial identifier. So what I'm just basically trying to say, we're just exploring concepts here, and it's a way of intimating all of us in this room, especially as we do one or two things in advancing for privacy, especially in the Ethereum ecosystem. So we have to determine what we really want. Do we want advanced pseudonymity? Do we want confidentiality? The information is there, however it's private. Do we want anonymity? Anonymity where the actor we know that there is an actor, we know that there is something, but it is unidentifiable? Or do we want full dark mode privacy? Let me stop there.
May I ask a question? Sorry.
No, I just wanted to mention that I think that a key change we need to be doing is we are treated as like that we need to prove that we're not criminals, you know, and we constantly speak about how we can be compliant with regulators. The huge like the hypocrisy of this is that while they do all these privacy protecting regulations like GDPR, it's supposed to save us from the bodies, then they deploy mercenary spyware, which basically breaks privacy and makes it impossible and breaks the pillars of democracy, among other things. So I think that it's very important that we don't fall on that trap of let's please the regulators. Like, we are not criminals. Like, people building open source software and coding and publishing code, we're not criminals. Those who weaponize the surveillance apparatus of the state and the different pillars of the democracy against developers are the real criminals, and they should be held accountable. And I think that all this conversation regarding compliance, we are constantly falling in that defensive trap that you were mentioning, right, Marina? And I'm wondering how we can step up our game and become more offensive, and because the battle is fought in our minds, in everyone's minds, you know, in terms of switching that paradigm, you know, from potential criminals to basically freedom fighters, which is what everyone who's doing this are. So yeah, I don't know if you've got any ideas on that. Okay.
Okay, well, off the top of my head.
Show closer.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So off the top of my head, like, yes, you know, you're making me feel like you're putting me on the spot as though I'm the prosecutor here, or as though I'm the regulator.
I was being controversial. So.
You know,
No
I mean,
intended.
we're all on the same side. You know, I think that was why I mentioned at the beginning about the fact that, like you said, call to action, and we're no more reacting. And first is advocacy, like we're doing here. This is like one of the very first steps, talking about it. Second is that I already mentioned earlier that I think that we also need to come together in our advocacy to begin to redefine certain terminologies. It's very, very important, because I could go on and on and on. The concept of personal data, for example, it puts privacy developers at risk. But if we, through advocacy, you know, begin to clamor for, you know, hold more, perhaps events, conferences, roundtable discussions, you know, that would help. But on the technical side, what I think I can quickly add is that layer 2 protocols, especially at the sequencer level, the regulators are very, very quick to clamp down if they see that the developers or the validators or the sequencer nodes, they have this, it's like a centralized setting where a particular entity or a particular sequencer has the power to perhaps edit or upgrade or to, you know, make modifications to the sequencer node. Those are some of the things that will attract regulations. So if L2 protocols or, you know, privacy developers, we can get past the stage of actually really decentralizing, you know, sequencer nodes, such that it is difficult for a regulator to say, oh, you are the data controller, like it is you that is running this thing, and so we're holding you accountable. So the more we have a lot of decentralized nodes who are running things independently, albeit simultaneously, yeah, I think that's help.
So what I would maybe comment here on is a message that I think would be great that you get from this panel, is that we're discussing here some of the situations that happened to some of our colleagues, but why it happened was because we had some laws that were in a way finalized at that moment. They were applied in a specific way. the message that I want to share is that those laws are changing, like in a good and a bad way. So they can change in a way where we would like them to change, and it goes into the direction that, you know, we in a way advocate for. And they can also change in a way where we get additional laws, or we have, you know, laws that are somehow acceptable or good for us changing in a better way. And that's where we do need to be active on an advocacy level. In a way, we as EUCI, we chose to be the one wearing the suit and going to the room and talking to the regulators. But we do know that there's like very different ways of like being active and in a way advocating for privacy. It is you know, organizing events like that, it's meeting, discussing topics, you know, doing activities like you do. And I think all of those are needed. But another thing that I would say is important from why we are speaking here and why discussing from an EU perspective is, my question was like, where are you practicing law? Which country?
Africa, but like it's global as well. Like I work with a lot of projects from outside of Africa.
So basically, lawyers from all over the world know about GDPR, and it was decided in the EU, and it will change in the EU as well. And there's some very, I think, interesting updates that are happening, and they happened just 2 days ago. There was a draft proposal for GDPR to be reopened, change in specific ways where it could actually be pretty positive for our industry, like indirectly recognizing that the privacy-preserving technologies could be even used as a tool for, I would say, even making blockchain a little bit closer to the GDPR framework, as we had like a very nice explanation how GDPR works and where is the, I would say, conflict with GDPR and the blockchain. We had I would say something like as a surprise this year, the European Data Protection Board issued this guidance where they analyzed the compliance of blockchain when it comes to GDPR. And, you know, again, we have builders here in the room. Our product roadmap is very uncertain. We react to what's happening in Brussels. So that's something that we didn't, in a way, plan to work on this year, but we got this guidance, the first draft of a guidance responded as well as an association, and now we're waiting for the final guidance. But the guidance was not very positive as it was described, that even mentioned if the data cannot be deleted from the blockchain itself should be deleted. So that's not very, I would say, constructive as well. But those are just like drafts, so it's not final yet. What is amazing is that with all the activities that the associations did, I would say us as well, and of course others, the European Commission has taken this into consideration, and they have written a proposal to change the existing text of the GDPR in a way where it would be much easier for the blockchain to be compliant within GDPR. And it goes also against some of the topics that were written in the guidance from this European Data Protection Board. So changes are happening, and I have to say, like, it's not many times that I have this opportunity to talk about, you know, positive achievements that are happening in this space, and I'm very happy that we can share that our contribution was significant to these changes as well. Of course, it's not only our association, but it was a very, very important step that we did this year. So, you know, a little bit hopeful, because every time people speak to me, they're like, oh, Marina, you're always like, you know, depressing me. There's so many like non-positive changes, but there could be also good ones.
And as a last note, you know, some people, solar punks here, they believe that there will be, you know, a bright future where, you know, nation states will basically realize the benefits of using this technology for greater good. Then there's the lunar punks who are preparing for the crackdown. It doesn't matter who is right. We need to protect the work of open source developers. And the only way we can do that is if we become stronger, so that if they touch one of us, they touch everyone, right? And in my opinion, that the work that associations like the European Crypto Initiative, Web3 Privacy, and everyone who's working on advocacy, I have a specific ask for the industry. I see lots of projects, very well capitalized, billions of dollars, moving lots of money, making cool parties. That's really good. That's great. But without putting their money where their mouth is, we will see many more developers getting prosecuted or getting their ass in jail. And the moment you are having to defend yourself against 5 years, 12 years imprisonment, that's it. Damage is done. We need a protective framework. And in order to do that, we're up against nation states, governments who have virtually access to unlimited amount of funds. We're way smaller. So I think as a key call to action, we need to unite, stop tribalisms. We're on the same boat, and support the organizations that are actually raising awareness on the importance of these technologies and who are doing excellent policy work and legal defense. And that,
Want to add anything?
No, I mean, it was very interesting. I mostly listened that part. I agree, like, we need to support organizations like the UCI, but also, I mean, somehow devs are now forced to be like activists because of this reaction, and it's really hard to plan and to foresee the risk. So I think where I stand and what I usually tell devs is just trying to have basically ethical behavior, you know, putting in question, trying to behave like close to what they believe is right within their own moral framework, so that then it's coherent and defensible. Because at some point, if you have to defend yourself, you all of a sudden are put in the spot of someone who is doing civil disobedience almost. So like you need to have a strong moral framework to be able to bring in your defense and argue why you think that like what you were working on is legitimate and positive for society.
Wow, perfect timing. And yeah, if anyone, you want to share just a final word, and yeah, I am ready to go join the fight with you guys. So, yes.
Final
Sneak
words.
in a
Oh, final
word.
words. Okay. Final words. Well, I think that my final word would be that when you hear legal and regulatory, please do not think that it's the end of the world or someone has come to kill your dream. And, you know, like the positive developments that have been happening, you know, in the space, especially with the, you know, European Crypto Initiative, there's a bright light at the end of the tunnel. But I think I'll very quickly want to intimate all of us in this room that as a first step, or one of the first steps in your building a privacy stack journey, is that you should have a legal mapping. A legal mapping, by that I mean taking notes of all that will be required of you in the jurisdiction that you plan to, you know, set up your project. Because when you understand that, or when you have that, you'll be able to know how to navigate. And then if you ever have or work with third-party sequencers, it would be you'll be protecting yourself by having what I like to call like a framework, like a written agreement between any third-party service you'll be having. So if your project is going to be using a third-party sequencer, for example, it would be nice to have an agreement between you and that third-party service so that when liability comes knocking, you can protect yourself. And yeah, that's it.
Just
Very
one sentence.
last actual final.
Yes, one sentence. There is no such a thing as compliant privacy. There is either privacy or no privacy.
Okay, mic drop on that one. Cool. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you. Bye.